2005, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And after going through my treatment, and I'm a 21-year survivor now, so I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
I started doing some research, and I realized that iLEX is a holly bush used for breast cancer treatment. And so it just drove that name even more home for me. And I knew no matter what, I was never changing the name of this company. And we actually designed our latest website, which is ilexgroup.io, that each person on the team chose a plant or a flower that they identify with. And when you click on it, it'll turn over and tell you the story of why they chose that plant. So if you click on mine, it'll tell you the story behind iLEX. And then everybody else says their story about why they chose the plant or the flower that they chose. And so
great.
We're a little different than the typical website that you deal with for consulting, where it's just a lot of stuffy pictures of people.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by and for EO Nashville, where we interview members and they get to talk about their journey, starting, building, growing, and exiting businesses and all the fun that we have in between. My name is Eric Jackson, and with me as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Good to have you again, Eric. This is so much fun to do on a Friday, by the way.
It is.
It feels like a good week end, to end the week off with these interviews.
It's a good way to pick the energy back up.
Yeah.
Because we have good conversations with EO members.
Yeah.
And on that note, our guest today, Joyce Mehlman with iLEX.
Yep.
And where did that name come from?
So interesting story. I started this consulting company back in 2000, and the original name was Abacus because we were in the financial industry. And the company that I worked for prior had just released a new product, and its name happens to be Abacus. And I didn't know that. And they sent me a lawyer's letter and said, you need to change your name. And we went, okay. And I was with some friends that weekend in New York, and we were talking about new names. And back like around 2000, X's were a big thing in technology. Like for a while it was Z's and whatever. And you had FedEx and all that, right? Yeah. And so my friend who's an arborist said, how about iLEX? And I said, that's cool. What is that? And he said, oh, it's a holly bush. And I'm like, okay. So we used it and we called iLEX Consulting, and we created a whole website. We had like a little holly flower leaf coming down as our marker and everything. And we really like leaned into it. And through the years, the name has morphed a bit in like how we do our design and our website. But 2005, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And after going through my treatment, and I'm a 21-year survivor now, so I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
I started doing some research, and I realized that iLEX is a holly bush used for breast cancer treatment. And so it just drove that name even more home for me. And I knew no matter what, I was never changing the name of this company. And we actually designed our latest website, which is ilexgroup.io, that each person on the team chose a plant or a flower that they identify with. And when you click on it, it'll turn over and tell you the story of why they chose that plant. So if you click on mine, it'll tell you the story behind iLEX. And then everybody else says their story about why they chose the plant or the flower that they chose.
That's
and so
great.
We're a little different than the typical website that you deal with for consulting, where it's just a lot of stuffy pictures of people.
Very personalized.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
This is a really good question that I think we should interject more is
Where did the name
of someone.
come from? Yeah.
Because it really does. Because you've attached so much meaning to it.
Yes.
That makes the purpose of the work, I would assume, deeper.
It does.
For you.
I mean, it's made the company, iLEX was just me at first. When I left Bancorp Bank, where I was the COO, and I started this company, it was just me. And no one knew what a fintech was back then. And people still don't know what a fintech is. But if anybody's listening and doesn't know, if you think of Chime or Dave or Mercury or Robinhood, those are all fintechs. Yep. So iLEX helps those guys figure out what they need to do to get to market, and we do it for them. And at first it was just me. And I love the name. It was my name. But as I grew and like the team started joining in, everybody bought into it. Like my whole team just jumped right on it and was like, oh my God, I love that about you. And by the way, my plant is X. And this is why. Like, if you look, our managing director, Matt, who happens to be my son, that's not why he got the job, but he worked for it. His is a Monstera, and there's a whole story behind his Monstera and his fiance, who's now his wife, and this Monstera named Frankie that they had in their apartment in New York City, and how they almost lost her, and like in their honeymoon. It's just really cool, and it's like it makes it personal when you're working with a client. They get to know you as a person and not just as a consultant or a company, and that's so important for us because we become part of their team. We want them to accept us, but we also want them to know who we are as people and not just as a company.
Mm.
So,
and that's not easy in the financial services world to personalize something.
So we love it. It's super cool. And I love the whole concept, and it has meant a lot to me through the years and continues to mean a lot.
Mm. So how did you get started in finance? What brought you to that?
So I was a criminal justice major. And went to Long Island University, CW Post in New York on Long Island, as you can tell by my accent, and was a criminal justice major, history minor. Thought that's what I was going to do. Actually did my internship with legal aid and was working at the Nassau County Prison taking statements. So I got to do all that fun stuff. Thought I'd go to law school, got married right out of college. That knocked law school right off the table. Took the test to be a Nassau County police officer, passed, and was waiting to be placed, and they went on budget hold. And by the time they called us up to active duty, I didn't want to do it anymore. And in the meantime, I had to have a job. And a friend of mine said, well, I can get you hired by Chase Manhattan into a management training program, but it doesn't start for 3 months. So they'll start you as a teller, and then they'll call you up when the management training is starting. I said, all right, well, if I don't get into law school right now, I guess that's the next best thing. So I did. And they forgot to call me up when they did the management training program. So I literally went through all of the different departments in all the different banks that I've worked for. I started as a teller. I worked in loan operations. I worked in back office operations. I helped Chase Manhattan do their very first business banking center. I helped set rates. I worked for a savings bank. We installed the very first ATM on Long Island. Try to tell a senior citizen why they have to give up their passbook. That's always fun. And then just kind of went from there. And through the years, I've worked with Nations Bank, which then was Bank of America, and First Junior, which was then Wells Fargo, US Bank, Ally Bank, BNP Paribas. Just did it all. I love learning. I love changing. I did mergers and acquisitions, finance, all of that. But then in 2005, I got hired by luck, I actually think, as the COO at Bancorp Bank, which was the first bank to ever step into this space. And Betsy Cohen, who's the CEO, is an amazing woman. She still is at 80-something years old and still strong and going strong. And I love the fact that a woman owned the bank, because there were so many glass ceilings back then that I couldn't break. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I was the only woman in the C-suite. So that was really interesting. And I spent 5 years there building out fintechs and the operations around it and compliance and risk and all of that, customer service. And when I left, I just knew I wanted to stay in that space. I was done with corporate America. I saw how these fintechs were struggling with Bancorp, trying to understand what they needed from them. They'd come in, I used to call them kids in a candy shop, because they would come in, back then they would raise $200,000, and that was a lot of money. And they would be like, oh, I have $200,000, I have this idea, and I want to be launched in a week. We'd be like, all right, you need to back up a little bit. So I was always the bearer of bad news. But I realized they were spending a lot of investor money trying just to get launched. So by the time they got into market, they were running out of money already. Yeah. And so I started iLEX to help them. And it's kind of what I had done at all the banks when I was consulting with them through the years, is help them out of like sanctions or consent orders or just what I do. I kind of problem solve. And so that's kind of where iLEX started, and it's just gone from there. And today, iLEX has launched over 65 programs, helped launch over 65 programs, and helped 13 banks get into the space. And I'm super, super proud of that. So yeah, really cool. And we've actually spun off a second company from iLEX that we do all the consulting and services. And then Spidr, who's the other company that was spun off, is actually a tech platform to get these fintechs to all the backends that they need in a unified API. And I helped co-found that company as well, because it's just so needed in the space today.
Yeah. And fintech is, I guess I became aware of it around the time you started iLEX. Yep. And it's been pervasive everywhere. I mean, I can't imagine, at my age, that this would ever be a thing, right? You would always go to the bank and have tellers, and it's a new world for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think banks are realizing people don't go to branches. I haven't been in a branch, I don't know, in many, many, many years, with electronic deposits and electronic money movement and bill pay and check deposit. You don't need to. And that's okay. And, basically a fintech needs to understand what they're bringing to market. You can't just be another card and assume you're going to get a market, because people don't leave their banks that easily. They're still stuck to their brick and mortar as much as they don't think so. I mean, I work with fintechs and my husband won't leave his brick and mortar bank. He uses other ones, but he still has that bank in the background. And I'm like, oh my God. But people just don't move that easily. So you have to have something that makes sense in the industry. You have to either be bringing a new idea or a new product or a new way of accessing that product, or helping a community or a segment of a community that doesn't have that help today. I love the fintechs I work with that are mission driven. I think that is so cool. We have one that we were working with that was working with Native Americans, because they're always being, they're being targeted by big banks, and like they don't understand finance, and their mortgages rates are insanely high, and they can't get lending the way they're supposed to. And I love that one's called Totem. It was amazing. I wish it was still around. We have another one that's just parent-child. There's a new one coming out that we're working with that's trying to work with athletes who are getting this NIL money and don't understand what to do with it. And it's millions of dollars, and it's gone in a week because they don't understand how to control it. And they basically give it over to either a manager that just spends it, or a parent that uses it. And it's fun. I mean, I know they have their needs too, but it is also the child's money. And by the time the child needs it and goes to use it, there's nothing left. Yeah. So, the founder has 5 kids, and they're all on scholarships, and they all are getting NIL money, and one's going to pro in golf. And he's just like, this is a need. This is an absolute gap in the industry. And that's what I love. I love filling those gaps.
Yeah. What was the first important decision that you had to make when you started the company?
I think my first really important decision to make was, how do I make sure I continue to feed my family? I had been a consultant on and off through the years in Charlotte, but I worked through consulting companies. So you got a paycheck. They had to deal with the ups and downs of the contracts, right? I mean, if I didn't work, I didn't get paid, but that's besides the point. With iLEX, it was all on my shoulders. It was me doing my own marketing. It was me making sure I had clients. And I had a day job for a while. I worked as a project manager at Progressive and traveled every week to Ohio while I was trying to do this at night, because I had to. My husband was in real estate. It's not a guaranteed income. Yep. My kids were, getting older and starting to look at colleges. And, I just knew I had to continue to make sure bills were paid. That was a really hard decision. My husband's been behind me every step of the way through my whole career. I have to thank him for me being where I am today, because he's put his career on the back burner for me. And he said, we'll make it work. Like, I trust you. I know you know this. I know this is going to work. Just do it. And as soon as I had 3 clients where I knew I could pay bills, I quit my day job. And he always jokes, because he said, she used to tell everybody this was her retirement plan. She was going to have 2 or 3 clients. We were going to make enough money to keep things going until she retired, and it backfired, because now you have like 60 clients and like a staff of 20. But it was a hard decision, and it took a lot of thought, but I don't know if I could have done it without my family behind me.
Was there a trigger point for you that you were kind of on the fence and not sure, like there was like the click for you?
Yeah. I mean, when I left Bancorp, even before I went to Bancorp, I had gone back. I had started iLEX the first time to just do consulting, and I had a job with Vanguard that I'd been offered, and Vanguard's amazing. Yeah. And I had to choose between consulting, and again, if I don't work, I don't get paid, or working for Vanguard, taking a pay cut to start, but ultimately in the future being better off for it. And again, my husband was like, you got to do what is right for you. I know you're not going to be happy behind a desk. I just know it. But, if that's what you want to do, I'm behind you. And then within that course of time of deciding, my dad passed away. And he was a teacher. He didn't have a big life insurance policy. My mom was left with the house and a lot of bills. And I knew if I went to do iLEX, I could help her. And if I went to Vanguard, I couldn't. And so I started iLEX the first time. And then I got hired as the COO of Bancorp, and I gave it up for a while. And then when I left, it was the same thing. And how do I pay my bills? And I looked at my options at full-time jobs and thought, I can't do this anymore. And I can't take a step back. No one was hiring me as a COO at any of these big banks. You know, I wasn't going back to America as a COO. So what do? And I thought, I need to control my destiny. That's the only way I'm going to be able to put my kids through college.
That's got to be a hard decision because you start out your company and then you get a big job offer.
Yep.
Yeah, fat money, and it does make it a challenge to follow that dream because you got the big check. It's the golden handcuffs that I think a lot of people fall into.
And what made it a little easier is I got to a point at Bancorp where I had done everything I thought I could do. The executive team and myself didn't see eye to eye on a lot of the regulatory and compliance around these fintechs, and coming from a compliance background, it was something extremely important to me. And anybody you talk to will hear, I always say, there's one thing I will never jeopardize, which is my reputation, because you can't get that back. And I was starting to feel like maybe I was compromising what I thought was right. So leaving Bancorp was a mutual, and it was fine. And it was the right time for all of us. That made it easier. It wasn't like I was leaving this amazing job and just going back to consulting. I had to make a decision, though. Did I stay in the corporate world or did I do consulting again? Because I knew I was leaving Bancorp. And that's when the decision around owning my destiny really came in. And I was like, I've done it. I've done consulting before. We've never been homeless. I know I can do this. I'm going to do it again.
How long doing back into your own consulting practice did it take you to feel comfortable that you could?
Probably within the first. So I got my first real client, which was, I'll call him out, was Team Pay. Andrew, who is the founder, is still an advisor of mine. I love him. We're great friends. My kids just say we had a work marriage relationship because we fought all the time, but it was for good things. And that was great. And I thought, okay, this will help, but I can't live on this. And he introduced me to a couple of the founders. One of them is a company, a fintech called Current, which is still in business today. Parent child. It's amazing. There's like 5 or 7 million customers right now. And I thought, okay, now it's getting a little easier. And then I met the founders of a company called Lily, which is a B2B business banking platform out of Israel. And once I got that one, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can live on these different SOWs. When they all add up, I can live on this. And that's when I decided I'm quitting my day job. That's it. Now I'm not looking back. Now I'm going full force. And that's when I brought on my first employee, which was my SVP in charge of customer service at Bancorp had left. And she reached out to me and I was like, yep, I need you. And Kristen and I started working together, and she came to Current with me and Lily. And it just kind of went from there. And I felt really comfortable, but then you don't again. So fintechs a couple of years ago really slowed down. Investment money was really dry. COVID didn't help. iLEX I had cut my salary to nothing basically because I didn't want my team to have to cut their salaries. And it still got to a point where we were 3 payrolls out from not having a company anymore. And my husband does our books, and I could see it in his face. The stress was just insane. My kids are grown and married, but still it doesn't make a difference at this point. You still have bills. And I had to make a really hard decision, and I had to lay some people off, and I had to cut some people back to 30 hours, and I had to step back in and do more work on that instead of just managing. But we made it through, but that made it really hard again. And at that point, it was another decision. Do I keep doing this? I have 17 people that rely on me. Do I tell them to go find jobs because I'm so afraid I can't keep them, I can't pay them? Or do I figure out how to make this work? I just don't look back. I think being a breast cancer survivor helped because life is short. You live every day. It taught me a lot about not putting things off because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I don't look back. I just keep going. You have to keep going when you're dealing with something like cancer. You just have to keep going. And so, I'm not saying that, oh my God, it was a great thing and everybody should have it. I mean, it was a card I was dealt and I lived it. And because of it, I'm stronger for it, I guess.
So when you're deep into that, you're having a lot of fear kick in, you're first you were worried about telling your team, disappointing them, and all that comes with that, and the guilt, that's something that's out of your control.
Talk about being up all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how long was it riding that uncomfortable, unknowing phase of uncertainty until, were you getting signs that things were going to turn around?
It really wasn't for about 6 months. It was about 6 months that we were actually like, is this going to actually turn around? Is this actually going to happen? Right?
So
Are we actually going to be okay?
How do you get your headspace in the right area to stay positive and
I think two things. I think I threw myself back into work. Instead of managing, I really started doing again and really started like going to conferences and doing, podcasts a little bit, but also just working with my clients, like getting them to market the ones they did have, to show that there was still this space that was viable.
Serving them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was I had 2 very young grandchildren who this is the reason why I moved to Nashville. And when I wasn't working, I was with them, and they were kind of they were my breath of fresh air. They were my release. They were the way I could forget about everything else in the world. They were my life. I love my daughter and my son-in-law, but my little ones were my life. And now they're 6 and 4, and they're still my life. But now I have a 20-month-old in New York as well. But I think that helped. I think that helped because when I was with them, I couldn't think about the stress because I had to be focused on them, because I had to be there and present with them. So I think that helped me. My daughter gave birth during that. I mean, it was a lot of things. Yeah. So I think that helped. But yeah, it was just, we got to make this work. I think that was just the attitude. We just got to make this work. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it work. We're going to keep going. We're going to do this.
Was there something during that downtime that helped turn the corner for that industry
There was. I mean, COVID went away. Things started opening back up again. Investor money started opening back up again. Some of the conferences that came back after COVID, even when they were virtual, really helped make banks realize, okay, this is still feasible. And some of the banks that had been in the space that had slowed down, all of a sudden started picking back up again. And, the founders, it was never a shortage of founders. It was a shortage of money in banks. And so as soon as those avenues started opening back up again, the founders were just there. They were waiting with bated breath for that. And then it just started, and we literally just took off again.
How did that experience change you as a leader?
Made me grow up a lot. I mean, I know, I wasn't young. I'm 66 now. Like, I'm going to be 66. Like, so I was in my early 60s at the time, right? But it did make me grow up. It made me realize that I'm not only responsible for me, because as a parent, you're responsible for your children, but it's just different. It's a different thing. It's that maternal, right? Yeah. These are people relying on me for their livelihood, for their children. That's just huge. And that really made me grow up really fast. It also made me probably be a little more, I will say a little cheaper. And my husband is happy about that. Not spending money quite so easily on things that like could have been fun, but we didn't really need to have or do. Focusing on how we work with our clients and how we get better so we get those referrals. So just side note, iLEX has been in existence since 2011. We've never done any marketing. Every single one of our clients is either a referral or someone that has come to us because they heard about us. I've never done a commercial. I have never done an ad in a newspaper. I have never done anything. It is all people coming to us. So, and I'm really proud of that because that means my team is doing what my team needs to do. And I'm so proud of them for that. But I think during that time, my team sticking with me I was a proud mom of my company as well. Yeah. No one walked away from me. No one quit. I couldn't believe it, but no one quit. It was amazing.
How did you handle communications with the company as you're going through all of this? Very honestly.
I'm a very honest and open person. People always say it's the New York in me, but it's just something. My dad was like that with me. He was a teacher, had, become a teacher later in life. Always told me, don't just give respect. People have to earn it. I don't care if they're older than you. It was something but you have to be respectful back and you have to be honest with people. And I learned that from him. And I've always been very honest, for good or for bad. I mean, there are people that hate me for it. I don't, not that I don't care. It bothers me, but I am who I am, and you either accept me or you don't. But I was very honest with my team. When things had to change, when we had to cut hours, we told them why. And we said, look, this is a choice. We either cut everybody back to 30 hours or we don't have a company. So what do we want to do? And everybody on the weekly call was like, that's cool. Just tell us what we have to do. Like, we'll make it work. Like, no one was, they were nervous. I'm not saying they weren't. And I'm sure there were things I wasn't hearing behind the scenes that they were freaking out about, which is fair, but they never walked away from me.
Yeah.
So before EO, how are you as a leader? What's the difference now, Ben?
We were just talking about that. There's a big difference. I love EO. In the short time that I've been here, it has taught me so much. I love my firm. We're small. There are 3 other badass women in it besides me. And
you're an all female.
I'm an all female.
Wow. That's really rare.
And it didn't start that way. So they've been through a lot of transitions in the forum that I'm in. They did have 3 men, and there were 4 women and 3 men. And one gentleman moved, another one decided he didn't want to be part of EO anymore. And the third one didn't feel like, I don't know, I guess there was some philosophical disagreements between him and the women in there. And so they left, and they decided the next person they brought on, they wanted another female first. And I was actually coming in through my attorney, Nancy Stable, who said, I'm going to find you the right forum. And EO did. And it's been amazing. And they are the most amazing mentors with me. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is to listen. Just actively listen. I think in the past, I'm a PM by trade. I'm a project manager. I solve problems. And I used to do that with my kids when they were growing up. And my daughter's famous saying was, I don't want you to solve my problem. I just want you to listen. And I didn't know how to do that. And it's really hard as a PM to not try to solve a problem for somebody. And EO has really made me step back and listen, actively listen, ask questions, but not try to fix the problem, right? Unless I'm specifically asked, what would you do? That is not how we do things in EO, right? And so I'm even taking that into my company now, the PMs. So I have a PMO of 4 PMs. And starting next week, we're going to do our sessions where each PM has 5 minutes to go over the most important things about the projects they're working on, whether that's problem points or good points. And then a 5-minute Q&A where we can probe and ask questions and help them solve the problem if they have it. But we're not going to use words like, you should, or why don't you, or tell them, because those are trigger words, right? We're not going to do that. We're putting a list together of words we don't use. And then we're going to get through that. And then if they still need some help, we can figure out how to mentor through that. And then the last 20 minutes of the session going to be a deep dive on a topic that is relevant to all of us. And that's exactly how my forum works. And I love it. And I think in general, it has made me a better parent. My son actually, who's my managing director, actually said to me today that he was actually proud of the way I was changing, because in the past, I would immediately go into a meeting and like blow things up, as he put it. It'd be like Joyce would walk in and things would just go poof, and like decisions would be made and then we'd be gone. And everybody's like, how did that just happen? And I'm not doing that anymore. At least I'm trying not to. I'm getting better at it. And it's really starting to bleed through into the company. And I love it. And I want to lead that way. I just never knew how. I was always put in situations where I had to fight my way through to a conclusion, or fight my way through a position that I had, or deal with people who doubted me, whether it was because I didn't have the degree in banking or finance, or because I was a woman, or because I was young. And so it's really nice to be able to step back now and change the way I do things. And I can thank EO for that.
And I think that is it's overwhelming philosophy around EOs, that people are coming in going, I don't really have all the answers.
Don't.
And those people that have slid into, let's say, my forum, and they are the experts, and they just blow all the rules out of the window of EO and telling you all the things you should be doing. And gosh, it makes the experience so much worse for everyone.
It's like, why do you want to be part of that? Like, that's not why I joined. I could do that in my everyday life with, half the people I have to battle at my vendors or my clients or the banks I work with. Like, I don't need that as part of EO. I go there because it's a safe place. The first thing we say every time, right? This is a safe space. Nothing leaves this room, right? And that is what makes it so easy to be honest and vulnerable. And I think that is one thing as professionals we all hide, is that vulnerability, because we're taught to be strong and have that facade. And so being vulnerable has always been a sign of weakness, especially in a woman. And so I love that I'm able to do that and start showing it outside of EO now too.
the thing that I don't think we talk about enough in EO is that those same concepts apply to our personal life as well. And we were talking about my relationship with my daughter and how I have interacted with her. It just made me realize there's a different way to deal with people. Because I'm her older and her dad, I don't necessarily get to tell her what to do. I mean, when she was a teenager, she didn't listen, and there's no reason for her to listen to me now. So we can have a two-way conversation. Right. She's going to make her own decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you try to make a decision for them and it doesn't work out, well, then you're the bad guy.
Yeah, they resent it. And even when you tell them and you know it's the right decision, that doesn't mean they're going to listen. And then you get frustrated because they didn't listen. So I'm trying very hard and learning with my own children and my own grandchildren to now not do that and just point directions and say, think about this or think about that, or what would you do if it was this? And let them come to those conclusions. And even my employees, like, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable with that, they have to make these decisions for themselves. I can't make it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very true.
Joyce, thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
That was so good.
I love this. Yeah, I love just talking about this stuff. I mean, it's really cool. And I've been around a long time, so hopefully I can help people.
Absolutely. I think that is rewarding for us to remember all these key points about the decisions that we get to make and how EO can be part of that. And if you are in EO, if you are in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are looking for an entrepreneurial community where you can be together with other entrepreneurs making powerful decisions, you may want to check out eonashville.com and see how over 350 entrepreneurs who have businesses that do $1 million+ in revenue gather together in what we call Forum. We gather every month and talk about important decisions we need to make in life and business. Please visit eonashville.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.